Alright, so now I don't know how effective some of these skips are going to be. I'm going to go over to a 100% file. I believe this is the high traction file. Yeah. So I need to play Juan Sandedge for this one. Oh, I also need to go do free play. Just because I don't want other vehicles driving into me while I'm trying to set up this skip. We don't need to time any of this. It's just showcases of various ILs, and we'll have an in-game timer. So if anyone played this game as a kid, they might remember Abyss. This track is incredibly mean. The first third of it has a split level segment that if you fall off, you get put onto a penalty lap, which is about 80% longer than the upper level track. So it just kills any chance you have of placing first. Typically this track is, I believe the world record's like a 2 minutes 18 seconds with no skips. But if I get this right, you can just drive into this wall and fly.
That was a lap.
Yep, that was lap 1. This is not the method that'd be done in the ILs. The IL method is slightly crazy and requires bouncing off the other side. There we go. This is, I like to call this game's equivalent of the Weather Tenko.
Final lap?
Yep.
See if
Not
you get
because
3.
it's nearly as difficult. Come on, camera. There we go. You basically have to latch onto this wall seam, and there we go. Yeah, none of the background has collision. And that's Abyss.
Yeah. I want to point out that Nfro didn't get this in practice, so awesome job getting it here.
Thank you. I did also practice for an extra like 4 hours last night just on this and another skip. All right. The other one that I really like is Inferno. This one I can almost guarantee I won't get all 3 on, because getting this in 3 laps is very difficult. Little history with this track, though. There are 7 Inferno skips. It is such a broken track. So that first little bit I did skips a pretty wide, or a pretty long first hairpin section. That doesn't matter much. Just trying to set this up for a showcase. No.
You're going to see some crashing, but it'll be worth it, trust me.
I'm going to restart this. Getting the lineup after a respawn is tricky. And just to show how much this first little jump skips, I'm going to go through this normally to show you how long this segment is. So just jumping over saves about 10 seconds. But... ah, God. I'm not braking early. That was actually pretty clean. Not enough height. So, the ceiling collision ends slightly before that wall I'm climbing. I'm going to give this 1 or 2 more tries, and if I don't get it, I don't get it, but... the collision for the ceiling ends slightly before that wall that I'm climbing. Meaning, if you climb that wall correctly, which I very much did not do there. If you climb that wall correctly, you just go around the ceiling. That looks good. Nope.
You can kind of see what's happening here.
Yeah. You clip out of bounds. I'm gonna give this 1 more attempt. You clip out of bounds through the ceiling. You go over this wall that's immediately to my left. Oh, got a wall climb past it. Yeah. There are very few scenarios where you don't save time by doing that. Just gonna back up. Huh. Whatever. But you can see what the goal of that skip is. You go over that wall to my left, but it is very tricky to get enough height. I do think frame rate had something to do with that, because wall climbing is much easier the higher frame rate you're at. So unfortunately, that one simply might not be possible on 50. Now, though, I'm going to show, first off, what the fastest method for this first track is. So you might remember with no upgrades on EB, it took me about, what, 230? Would have been without deaths?
Something like that.
It was 240 with 2 deaths. But with Ben, whose boost thrust is 400, making it the highest in the game by a very wide margin, this track is like blink and you'll miss it. Oops, a little wide. Actually, I need to put on Sebulba. This is called Sebulba strats. Because remember that really wide rock I had to go very far away to avoid? Sebulba just breaks that for you. Well, not that one. So Sebulba breaks that rock for you. Meaning laps 2 and 3, you get a much more free line through that. Ah, God. Also, as you can see, the ILs for this are a little bit tricky. I described it earlier as the closest thing PC gamers ever got to F-Zero, and I'd stand by that just for the raw speed at max upgrades for this. Give this another shot. There we go. So you don't have to go a little off-road to avoid that rock, but it makes it far easier. There we go. So that is 20 full seconds faster than my time on EB. Lap 2 is a little bit weird with the boost line I wound up on. Ooh, I clipped a wall there and didn't explode. Got very lucky.
More Sebulba strats.
Yep. So that rock is gone, meaning I can take a much narrower line there. This is going to be a 33 something, yeah. And then lap 3 is where this track really takes off, because you just boost. And unfortunately, I don't have enough time on some of the later game ILs to really showcase Ben on them. Otherwise, I would be. So it's going to be... Wow. So it's going to be this and one other one, or one, maybe 2 other ones right afterwards. So, even with a death, that's almost a minute faster than the times on EB. World record for that track in the IL setting is, I believe, a 135. Which, without a death, I would have had a mid 136, I believe. And this is where I'm going to briefly showcase what frame rate does. You'll see the frame counter in the top left, and you'll see the game shrinking. Now, need to go into tournaments. So, I said earlier, your frame rate affects your traction. I just bought the worst part in the game for your traction stat. You need your traction to be the lowest value it can be in order to make that hairpin work at these speeds. Also, 24 FPS means very bad load time. So, I'm playing this at 24 FPS, lowest traction imaginable, at the highest speeds you can attain in the game. Just to put in perspective how tricky this actually gets. Wow. Yep. And at these speeds, if you touch a wall, you're pretty much guaranteed to die.
Here we go.
Yep. You have to start the hairpin turn much earlier on Ben than you do on Beto, just because you're going how much faster? The answer is too much.
A lot faster, yes.
The answer is way too much faster. All right. So when we did our tournament much earlier in the year, I put an ungodly amount of time into this track specifically just so I had an ace in the hole. But I haven't touched it much in a while, so this is a little bit tricky. There we go. There's the hairpin. So, that hairpin is much harder than it looks. But taking that thing successfully on Ben is one of the hardest things you can really do in the amateur circuit. Oh, that was very lucky. Usually if you touch that, you die. There we go.
2 out of 3.
Yep. Just gotta make one more, as well as not screwing up some of the other stuff. That's a scrape, but it's fine. That wall doesn't usually kill you if you touch it. Just because you're touching it at such a soft angle. In general, the steeper of an angle you come into contact with a wall at, the more damage it deals, and the more likely you are to just instantly die. And there it is. 642 exit speed on lap 3 is pretty solid. Alright, that is a 146.72. That is actually only about 2/10 of a second off my PB on that track. But that's going to do it for me on this game for today. It was a joy to show it. Feel free to come on out and join our community. We are always looking for new runners, new players for multiplayer. It's pretty active, and I think the game's a hell of a lot of fun. Thanks for being out here, and thanks everyone else for coming out to watch.